What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Post-Gazette Pirates YouTube channel. Noah Hiles, Jason Mackey here, coming to you live. Breaking news, the Pirates have fired manager Derek Shelton. And into year 6 of his tenure with the team, the Pirates are 14 games under 500. They fire him on an off day, just 8 days in to the second month of the season. We're here to react to it. Jason, I'm just going to throw it right to you. You covered the bulk of this guy's time in Pittsburgh. I covered the tail end of it. Your reaction to the news?
Yeah, I'm not surprised, Noah. I don't think it fixes the whole problem. I'm surprised that Ben Cherington is still here. I don't understand that. I think it was time. I think it was probably time after the end of last year. I like Derek Shelton a lot. He's been nothing but fair and courteous and everything to me and my family. And, it's not personal. It was just not working. They should have played better fundamental baseball. I think Derek Shelton, through his first couple of years here, was a good manager to have in a rebuild and what they were going through, and has a positive attitude and related well to players. And you know what? They came out on the other side of it, and it just wasn't effective. It wasn't the brand of baseball they needed, and it started to really show itself last year. I don't know why they waited this long into the season. I don't know why they kept Ben around, but we'll get into all of that. I feel bad for Shelty, but I can't say that I can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah, and you're not the only one. Just conversations through people in the organization I've had over the last week indicated that this was coming. And those conversations also kind of echoed your other point was, I'm not sure what exactly this fixes. I think it was a move that needed to happen. Similar to what you said, Derek Shelton has been very good to me. We had a very good professional working relationship, and you never like to see anyone lose their job. But the reality is this organization needs a lot of change, and I think this is the first of what should be many. And I'm not going to, lock in on all of the specifics there. I think people can put that together, but yeah, it just seemed like this was the time, if it wasn't already way past the time. Yeah. I'm not sure why they brought him back to manage essentially the same team as last year when we saw what that team's ceiling was. It's really the same roster the last 2 years, aside from a couple of young pitchers that came up in 2024. So they saw what he was capable of leading this core group. And it was a 76-win season. They brought him back. They didn't add anything around him. They didn't make anything different, and they expected different results. And in a way, those results were different, Jason. They were worse. And now they're
looking for.
Yeah, they're 14 games under 500. They weren't that bad at any point in each of the last 2 seasons, I believe. So it was time for this move to happen. Yeah. Let's move the conversation forward to the guy taking Shelton's job, Don Kelly, the bench coach, Mount Lebanon's own, takes over. And I don't know about you, Jason, something that stood out to me in that press release was one missing word.
The I word. No I word.
No I word. No interim tag on Don Kelly. Obviously, we're going to get more context on that. Jason and Colin will be in Pittsburgh to cover Cherington's press conference at 3 p.m. Eastern. I'm still in St. Louis, if you can't tell by my hotel room, so I won't be there for that. But we'll have you covered. But Jason, what do you think this means? No interim tag? Is Don Kelly the manager after 2025?
I mean, I don't know what it means. I think they've left themselves an out. I mean, you don't have to put an interim tag on a guy. I think that's kind of, overcooked. I mean, he's probably on a contract as a bench coach that would be up after this year anyway. So he's the manager. And if it goes well, they're going to say, well, he's our manager again, of course. And if it doesn't go well, they're going to say, his contract was up and we need to search for a manager. So I think in some ways, like it's a bit of a nod or some respect to Donnie. And I know you share this opinion too. Anybody who's been around the Pirates, like Don Kelly is unfailingly nice to everybody. Yeah. He is involved in everything. He is relentlessly positive. He's a really good and well-respected person. He's worked for this opportunity. He's interviewed for other jobs. I think he can do really well. And I think it is going to, be a wake-up call in the clubhouse. I don't think it's enough of one. It's not going to change their roster construction, but I do think guys are going to want to play for Donnie. I think they respect him. So I'm curious to see how he does. What about you?
Yeah, I'm curious to piggyback off of more on what you were saying. What does a successful season look like for Don Kelly? Obviously, I mean, the easiest answer is he rallies them back to 500 and they play competitive baseball for the remainder of the season. But is it realistic to expect that right now? I don't think so. But let's say the second half of the season goes really well. And when they're at complete health with Horowitz, Nick Gonzalez, Bubba Chandler's up here, Jared Jones is back. And in their last, 80 games, they go 50-30. Does that make Don Kelly the manager? If he goes 45-35, does he stay around? And is that what this team needs is the other question. Well, yes, I agree with everything you said, Jason. Don Kelly he's well respected not only in Pittsburgh baseball circles, but Major League Baseball circles. Mm-hmm. He's a disciple of Jim Leland, a Hall of Fame manager. He has a great resume, and I think he's someone that will be a big league manager one day. But does this team need more of what has currently been running the show? Not saying Don Kelly's been pulling all the strings, but he's a continuation of what's currently been going on for the 6 years. The point of change, at least in my eyes, is to give a fresh perspective. Yeah. Are you getting
over all perspective?
Yeah, over all of it. Yeah, not just in the dugout, but in the front office too. And if you keep moving forward with the same front office and the guy who is just beneath Shelton, how much change is that? So I'm really interested to see what is said about this missing interim tag on Don Kelly's name and how he is viewed by the organization for the rest of the year during his time managing this team. Yeah,
I think where I'll go with this is almost a link to Clint Hurdle, which might sound like out of left field to people. But what Clint did really well was he took an old school baseball mentality and merged it with the analytics side that we know the Pirates are going to push. I don't think they've done a good enough job. I think they've built up the analytics department. I don't think they've merged it well enough with the baseball side where you have numbers and you have feel. You need to come to a logical conclusion. And I don't think Derek Shelton did a particularly good job of that. I hope Don Kelly does a better job of that. And I think that's something that Donnie, he's been with the Tigers, who are not, analytical dinosaurs. He's been with the Astros, who are very much at the forefront of that stuff. They do pretty much everything well. And he's seen a really far-sighted thing with the Pirates. He needs to have his own personality and how these moves play and how he deploys players. And he's not going to change the roster construction or how the Pirates writ large comport themselves. But I do think there's a lot more to be gained from deploying players, from getting through to players, from blending some of the numbers and what they're. Terry Francona would be a perfect example. We don't know if Donnie can be that. Maybe he can. We don't know. But that's what they need to effort toward, in my opinion.
So, Jason, I'll ask you as we wrap up this instant reaction here, breaking news reaction. Is this the only midseason change that we see this team make in 2025? Are they done making changes until October arrives and they're not playing baseball any longer?
You know what I'm worried about, and I don't want to monopolize the talking here, but in 2019 when they blew it up, they started with the manager, and then I think they went. I forget who came next. It might have been Frank, and then they went to Neil. Yeah, Nutting is not above doing a disjointed. Sort of tear down. So to say this is the only in-season move, I can't say that. Yeah. If we would wake up on Saturday and he'd move on from Cherington, that wouldn't surprise me. It's unpredictable. I mean, again, my opinion is that they should just do it all right now. I don't understand the need to continue with any of this. But if you're asking me, do I think there could be an in-season move in addition to this? Yeah, I do. But what about you?
I don't know. I still, from all the conversations I've had as recent as a couple days ago, I still don't get a ton of indication that Cherington is going to be let go. I wouldn't, from what I've heard, I still wouldn't be.
You're saying after the season?
Correct. I still think there is a very realistic chance that he's the general manager in 2026. And that's not going to sit well with fans. And obviously, a lot can change between that point in time and where we are now on May 8th. But I think that if there are other in-season changes, I would be surprised if it's the general manager, or at least in the short term. Maybe if it continues to get really bad and we get into August or September, and they want to get a leg up on replacing that position, then sure, they'll maybe let him go in the final couple of months. But I don't have any indication that he's anywhere close to losing his job right now, which again, to some people is puzzling to hear.
Yeah, and let me ask you that, as somebody who is having these conversations, is it a lot closer to the situation than I am? Let me ask you plainly, why?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it is hard to figure it out, because if we're playing the blame game here, I would point more fingers toward the general manager than the manager. Don't get me wrong. Derek Shelton made mistakes during his time here. I think the best way to summarize Shelton is he wasn't good enough to get the most out of what he was provided. I'm not sure how many people would have been good enough to make these rosters that he's had playoff rosters. But he wasn't good enough. And the stats back that. Yeah. But look what he was given.
I know.
Especially, I mean, he managed a major league team for 5 full seasons, and into his 6th season, he never got an external free agent on a multi-year deal. They never had a payroll above $100 million. His best player that he had the opportunity to manage was someone who fell into their lap 1-1, and the only full season that he had to work with that player was under strict guidelines, restricting how often he can be utilized.
Yep.
Again, this isn't a sympathy pity party for Derek Shelton. I'm just saying he is far from the only thing that you can point at as to why this team 6 years into this regime is nowhere close to making the playoffs.
Yep. I couldn't agree with you more, Noah. And he did it all. I will give Derek Shelton this, treating the people around him with a lot of respect.
Yeah.
He was not the world's most interesting quote.
No.
But you know this, and I want this pointed out too, that like you and him had the thing on TV.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's going to get linked to the two of you. And that didn't define your relationship at all. Like, I know that you got along with him. He got along with you. You guys, like, there was, I'm not saying a closeness, because that's not the way it works in Major League Baseball, but there
was a mutual respect.
Thank you. That's a much better way of putting it.
And it was, and it's cool.
And Shelton could have been a jerk, and like
he could have been a jerk,
not been that way to anybody, and he wasn't. He was a decent human being.
As someone, you would know this, as someone who's covered baseball, you're around these people every day, and I think most people in Shelton's position, or who make decisions or talk to the media every day, they understand that they need to have a good professional relationship. And before that moment, and definitely after that moment, I think Shelton made himself available to where if I did have a question that maybe needed a little bit more context, he was available. He was always there to explain what was going on. And some of those explanations, they'll never see the light of day, unfortunately. But that's just the way this goes. As they should. So, yeah. So I guess it's time to wrap this up here now.
Good.
Pirates fire manager Derek Shelton. Don Kelly takes over here on May 8th. Check out all of our coverage on this at post-gazette.com. We have breaking news. We have stats to go along with the decision. We will be covering the press conference. I'm sure Jason will have a column or two on this. I think that's a safe bet. And I think we'll have a lot of analysis moving forward on it as well. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and keep following our coverage. Derek Shelton fired 6 years into his tenure in Pittsburgh.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.